college was going to help me figure it out.
and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out.
And
And here I was
spending
spending all of the money my parents had saved their entire life.
spending all
And
the
here
money
I was spending all of the money my parents had saved their entire life.
entire life.
So I decided to drop out and trust that it all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with, and all I would walk the
every Sunday night deposits to buy
food with,
And I would walk the
and I would walk the
7 miles across
and I
town
would
every
walk the
5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles.
and I would walk the and I would walk the walk
Coke
the
bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday.
and I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night.
5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night
And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night
to get one good
middle week at the Hare Krishna temple.
I loved it.
I loved it.
And much of
What I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered
Reed College at that time
offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about varying. I learned about serif and sans serif.
and sans serif type
I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces,
faces,
about varying the amount, about varying
of space
the amounts of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great,
be great.
typography great.
It was
It
beautiful,
was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced font. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer will have them. If I had never dropped out, I would never have dropped in on this calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do.
class. If I had never dropped out,
If I had never dropped out, if I had never dropped out, if I had never dropped out,
if I had never
if I had never dropped out, if I had never dropped out,
never dropped
I have never, I have never dropped.
if I had never dropped
If I had never dropped out,
out, I would have never dropped in.
I would never.
If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped.
I would have, I would have, I would have never.
If I had never dropped out, I would have never.
If I never dropped out, I would have never have not. I would have, 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 I would have never dropped in on this. I would have, I would have, I would have never, I would have, If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on this calligraphy class.
Have the wonderful typography that they do. Typography class and personal computers might not have doubt. I would have never dropped in on that.
I would have never dropped in on this calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backward 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road, it will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.